So let us discuss about 29 June 2015 newspaper. The most important article is related to the sticking points between Iran and P5+1 countries on the nuclear agreement. So already we have discussed that in the previous issues, but however let's go through them. Now one thing is the pace of implementation of lifting of sanctions on Iran, and the second thing is if necessary, tomorrow if do not agree, Iran do not agree, how the sanctions have to be restored, that is restoration of the sanctions. And third thing is, now how to verify the Iranian nuclear facilities. So IAEA is most of the times is not allowed, providing access to the Iranian scientists and military sites, and limiting the scope of R&D. In this, the Iranian nuclear activity has to be limited only for 10 years, and uranium stockpile only has to be reduced for 15 years. So these are the things which have been discussed about. So in this case, let us see this. Mr. Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, he has recently has clearly said that anything that damages the long-term interests of Iran and keeping aside the R&D on the nuclear energy requirements cannot be taken for longer. That's what is the Supreme Leader has said. So there is a contentious issues with regard to these particular things. The next one is the BCIM corridor. In yesterday's newspaper, it was given this. The facing of insurgency is a major challenge in the BCIM corridor. You know that Kolkata to Kunming in Yunnan province in China, this runs. It goes through Myanmar and Bangladesh. So in Myanmar, especially close to China, there are Kokang rebels. They are running an army, that is Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army. Similarly, in the northeastern Myanmar, we have this Wa State Army. And next is, in the Rakhine State, there is already an ethnic conflict which is going on between majority Buddhists and minority Muslims over there. So that is Rohingyas. So already we have seen this crisis. So how to handle this? Why can't these four countries get a joint mechanism, joint headquarters and operations towards taking up these issues? Here the major challenge will be the legal and regulatory framework, how to establish this legal and regulatory framework. Now in this case, the Mekong experience along the Mekong river, the economic cooperation program which was undertaken is a best example in the Southeast Asian countries. Now these four countries also can launch such an international or inter-country management of these insurgencies, so that can improve the things. Next is the recently in many of the more than 9,000 NGOs which are been registered with under Foreign Contributions Regulation Act lost their registrations because of non-devolution of the information to the government. Now in this context, the foreign contributions, how much they form and what exactly their role is analyzed by this particular article. Now annually, the foreign contributions to the NGOs, they come around 11,000 crore rupees, which is very much minimal with regard to the total GDP of the country, and total foreign fund flow into the country is considered. The World Bank, the flow from the World Bank and also foreign direct investments, they are not considered as part of this Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. So outside FCRA, it goes to lakhs and lakhs of crores, and within FCRA it comes only to the 11,000 crore rupees, which cannot anyway affect the political or economic system of the country. Now the second thing is, here in this, most of the funds are going towards the health, rural development, education, etc. So whatever the government is claiming as anti-national, the scope is only for 13 funds which are used for the religious purpose, lobbying and propaganda purposes. So they count only for the 13%. Next is, if we go further in a society, all the institutions, either it is the government, NGOs, they shall be transparent and accountable. So the government regularly questions RTI is making the governmental institutions transparent. Then what is there for the NGOs? So in this context, in a national accreditation agency can be created for NGOs. It was already proposed in the National Policy on Voluntary Sector in 2007. Now it was also taken for the discussion during 11th, 12th 5-year plans, and it is pending. So, and the other point is, the government has provided for the peculiar benefits to various established, the bureaucracy and also the politicians from inquiries. Now, NGOs have no such a benefits, and any regulatory laws which are made by the government, they ultimately become the harassment for the law-abiding citizen and an escape for the person who is working from the back door. So it means the jot downs to one single point, the gap between the law making and law implementation in the country, and the harassment of the citizens who are the law abiders in this particular country. And next is the China, and with regard to the One Belt One Road initiative and Maritime Silk Road, if keenly observed, what this article of Srinivasan Ramani says is this. So, One Belt One Road initiative and also the Maritime Silk Road are in reflection to the changing economic structure of the China. If you recently observe the economic structure of the China, so the major changes which we can see are this. As a response to the 2008 economic crisis, there is a lot of reforms, there is a lot of exposure of the happened in China, where to create the domestic demand and a huge credit bubble is being created. So that has increased the real estate prices, and also the heating of the economy has occurred over there. And the second thing is, there are a lot of overcapacities created in the manufacturing sector because it was majorly an export-driven economy. Now the third thing is, the economy is changing from a manufacturing sector to mostly focusing on towards the services sector, and also the regional inequalities are very high in China. Now China has to find an expression outside its boundaries towards the other countries to provide for investments. So, and the second thing is, the China's economy itself has to become a consumption-oriented economy now. So, these are the structural changes that are necessary with regard to China. So, from the structural changes perspective, we have to observe this Maritime Silk Road or One Road, One Belt initiative. One Road, One Belt initiative is nothing but an investment in the long-term assets or an asset investment by China. And the Maritime Silk Road is to connect with the Southeast Asian countries and Asian countries towards improving or standardizing its economic ties with them. On the other hand, the Maritime Silk Road is considered in India as part of the string of pearl strategy of the China by the strategic thinkers. Now, One Belt One Silk Road initiative is also a part of the power game, or where China is asserting itself as a economic power, and also the great power attitude it is showing under the One Belt One Road initiative. This is what is the Western perception of is. Now in this context, if we can see, for India has to see China as mostly a changing economic structure and has to constructively engage with China. Now in this context, let us see. One, India has a strong tertiary sector, and the second thing is, India has a need of the capital for its infrastructure, where China is looking for an expression for the surplus which it has. So in this context, there are win-win situations between India and China. And the BCIM corridor of Act East policy of India, where China wants to synergize its One Belt One Road initiative. So from this it can be said that so the China and India has synergies with regard to the improvement of their with regard to the improvement of the infrastructure, and also the century belongs to Asia if these two great economies work together. And after this, the Raghuram Rajan recently at London School of Business, he made a comment that the Great Depression like situation is still looming across the countries. But however, a correction was given. The bigger the neighbor. This was the attitude during the Great Depression. It means that every central bank tried to ease its monetary policies to provide for the cheaper currencies and to improve its own exports. So So it has led to again a bubble which has finally led to a Great Depression. Now even if the central banks do not act together, probably such a situation may arise. That is what is the warning given by the Raghuram Rajan. So, and next is, with regard to the threat to the journalism, recently in Shahjahanpur, Jagendra Singh was killed by the serving minister of the Akhilesh Singh Yadav government. Now, if you can observe for your media, please write down this particular index. Community for Protection of Journalism, Annual Impunity Index. India is placed around 13th position. It means that the India is not a place very safe for the journalists, and that is due to institutional weaknesses, lack of strong judicial protection, and also enforcement agencies with regard to the various protections given to them. So this is what is this article talks about. Just remember this particular index to support your argument with regard to the media question if anything comes up tomorrow. So let's look back again. So this article, so the beggar the neighbor, that's what I have explained. And the economic structure is changing in China, and infrastructure projects which they are taking up in Asia are in response to this changing economic structure rather than a strategic response under geopolitics. And this article, the NGOs, if they need regulation, and we need to provide for a direct regulation onto them instead of taking an indirect route under the FCRA. And most of the funds, they are used for constructive purpose, and only the 13% of the funds are used can be prone for something called as deviations. But however, government is not risking the criticism of NGOs. Basically, the political cost of this criticism to economic policies is very high. And next is the BCIM corridor. It has got its own threats. The insurgency threats, especially from Kokhang rebels and War State Army, and also insurgency and the ethnic clash in the Rakhine state. So the Mekong experience can serve the better over there. Already we have seen the points or sticking points in Iran's policy over here. So these are the things. Yesterday also we have discussed what are the points of contention between Iran and the West with regard to the Iran final nuclear agreement which we are talking about. So June 30th is the target date. I think it may be extended by a few weeks before a final agreement is announced. So these are the things today. Thank you very much again.